Welcome back to Alert Summits. Today we have Brett Piperni with us talking about discipline, his journey with martial arts, and overcoming challenges within our own lives. Thank you so much for coming on today, Brett.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Abdul. Thank you for the opportunity.
So just for people who might not know who you are, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a high-performance mindset coach. So I work with a number of professional athletes all around the world in all sports realms.
Awesome. And as far as I know, you're a black belt in some sort of a martial arts. What kind is it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Awesome. And so what was your journey with that like?
Yeah, so I trained martial arts for, the majority of my life, over 25 years. I'll just share some insight. I'm going to date myself a little bit here, but I'm going to go back to 2006. So yeah, dating myself for sure. Had an opportunity to go train overseas at a high level. So I went to Beijing, trained for quite some time. I mean, of course, there was an idea in my mind of wanting to try to make it to the Olympics. It's one of those, you need everything to kind of line up. But I was like, hey, look, if I don't go for it, I'll regret it for the rest of my life type of thing, right? So picked up, moved overseas, trained super high level. First little bit was fantastic. I learned the hard way to never underestimate somebody. Listen, I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder coming in from Canada. Let me just say that the competition overseas was quite a bit different than it is in Canada. I got my butt kicked quite a few times. It's good. Lessons along the way. But halfway through my journey when I was there, I started to get a little sick, kind of like some food poisoning symptoms, which kind of progressively just got worse. Just to give you a high level insight, about a month goes by. Doctors didn't know what was going on. I hadn't trained. I couldn't eat, couldn't really keep anything down. Imagine getting food poisoning like 2 or 3 times a week. That's what my symptoms were.
Wow.
Ended up having to come back home to Canada. Obviously, I couldn't stay there. And things didn't get any better. They just progressively got worse to the point where we're talking 2 months now or 3 months. I hadn't stepped on a martial arts mat. I haven't done anything. I saw so many doctors. Everybody kind of just shook their head, send me to this specialist, send me to this guy. Let's do this test. And I couldn't get any answers. After about 6 months, this is when it started weighing on my psyche. Like I had basically picked up everything to move overseas to train for, something that I've always wanted to do at the highest level, to go to the Olympics. And that was gone. And it was gone, and there was nothing I could do about it. Like there was no control. Like there was nothing I could do. So when you kind of, make a big decision and sacrifice everything and not have it pan out, that's one thing. But not have it pan out in a controllable aspect where I couldn't do anything was tough. And not only that, I had no answers. Like I was literally going to doctor's appointments constantly. And I was like, hey, docs, like, you guys got anything yet? Like, is there any information you can tell me? And they sorry, bro, we're going to have to keep working on it. We'll get back to you. So we fast forward like a year, and I always fought in welterweight. So I was like around 180 pounds, and I was down to about probably like 135 at that point. And I started to lose my hair. I developed alopecia. So my hair was falling out. I mean, man, it was a mess. Like suicidal thoughts were just something of the norm. Let's just put it that way. Even got to a point where I remember my mom walked in one day, and she saw me lying in bed, and I was a wreck. And they're trying to be strong for me. Mom's trying to be, I'm her baby boy, she's trying to be strong for me. But just the look on her face, man, like it broke my heart, man. Like it broke my heart. It was some dark times in my life. I mean, we've all got a story, we've all got baggage. So I'm sure, people can relate, but it was tough giving up everything and having it taken away with no answers. So we keep going along, and now it's 2 years go by, and basically it's like my life is almost over. I mean, they're just trying to keep me alive. Man, it's like I said, sorry guys. It's just when I think about it, it's just like wow. It's putting things into perspective. It's kind of an eye opener. So I was down to 124 pounds. That was my lowest weight from 180. All right, I was a national athlete to somebody who could barely stand up and get out of bed. There was days, like I said, where I didn't want to live anymore. And like the thing that was the worst was not being able to get any answers. So I finally get this call one day, and it's one of my specialists, and he says, "Brett, we figured it out." I said, great. What's going on? Like, what is this, man? So it's called gastroparesis. It's a delayed emptying of the stomach. So basically, my food I'd eat, it would sit in my stomach. The colon that releases the food in your digestive tract wouldn't open, they wouldn't release. So the food would just sit in my stomach and basically rot and decompose, and hence the food poisoning symptoms. So I said, okay, how do I get this? Like, where did this come from? At the time, they weren't sure. The current thought process, or the thought process was that I did damage to the vagus nerve, which was nerve damage, which caused the stomach to malfunction. So I said, okay, well, I don't even care at this point. What do we do? Like, how do we fix this? And the doctor says to me, Brett, there's no known cure for gastroparesis. So I'm just like, man, after 2 years of waiting to figure out what's going on, they finally tell me what's going on, and now there's no cure for this. So I said, well, so what do we do? And they said, well, listen, there's medication and there's this and that. And so at least they're trying to treat it. Man, I can't even explain to you how letdown's not even the word. Like, I guess you have your hopes set for something and then you finally get it and it's not at all what you expect, like this preconceived notion of what we expected it to be like. I always figured a day would come, they'd figure it out and we'd have some sort of an answer. And that day never came. The day came, they said, hey, we figured it out, but I'm sorry, we can't do much for you. So even you can only imagine what my state was like. A couple of days later, I say, screw this. And I get out of bed and I said, I'm going to go for a walk. I was miserable, man. I was, like I said, depressed, whatever. And I'm walking down the street and I get to the crosswalk and, man, here I am. I'm 6'2", 124 pounds, no hair, dreading life, thinking to myself, how could this happen to me? I train so good. I try to take care of myself, like out of nowhere, no answers, whatever, man, hating life. And I go to push a button on the crosswalk. And as I push this button, I look to my left and there's a young boy who's like 15 years old and he's in a wheelchair and he has no legs. And the thing that's incredible is I see him and he sees me and he smiles at me. Man, he smiles at me. Here's me standing on my own 2 feet, wanting to end my life. And here's a boy in a wheelchair with no legs smiling at me. That was that moment, man. And that was still to this day, it's probably the biggest eye-opening moment I've ever had in my life.
Do you think it was destiny that you saw him?
Man, it very well could have been. I think that there's so many things that we do, we say, okay, like, whether it's karma or do the right things. I believe in doing the right things, karma. I believe in all that stuff. I believe that at some times in our lives, it may be destiny, but we need to make sure we're in a certain state to recognize that destiny, right? So for me, that was like my lowest moment. And maybe if I wasn't in my lowest moment and I see the kid in the wheelchair and he smiles and I smile back at him and it doesn't really mean much to me, right? But it's just everything that aligned and I was just like, wait a second. Like there's something wrong with how I'm thinking here. Like clearly there's something wrong with how I'm thinking. So I said to myself that moment, I said, well, listen, if he can smile and I can't, this is on me, right? So that has to be something that I'm doing. Nobody controls my mind and my thoughts except me. So I challenged myself to change my perspective. I challenged myself to try to find the advantage in every situation. And it's incredible, man, the power of the mind, because I remember going home that day, doing my thing. And I said, you know what, man, forget it. This is the reality of my life right now. But there's got to be some sort of an advantage here. If he can find an advantage, then there's no reason why I can't. And that's kind of where everything started, man. I'm going to give you a quick fast forward. I started learning more about the mindset, started learning more about perspective, the thoughts that we have, how they dictate our emotions, and how people make decisions and take action based on how they feel. Started learning about meditation, breathing. I started juicing, just vegetable juice. And man, we fast forward maybe 3 months. And I remember coming downstairs in the kitchen one day and my mom looked at me and I was just like, what? And she's like, you're like glowing. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah. She's like, well, I haven't seen you look like this in 2 years, And even shortly after that, my brother was downstairs with me and we were sitting down and I remember turning my head and he looked at me and I was like, what? And I when somebody looks at you, like as if there's like a spider behind you or something like that. And I was like, what? And he's like, buddy, turn. And I turned my head and my hair started to grow back. And, those are all those things. It's like, maybe I made a decision today to try to change my perspective and maybe I didn't see the results right away, but I kept doing it, man. I kept doing it. And then the results started to come. My mom noticed my hair started growing back. I started putting on weight. 6 months later, I go to the doctors. They're honestly blown away by my blood work. They're saying to me, like, listen, whatever you're doing, don't stop, And man, just about a year after the time when I saw the boy in the wheelchair, I was able to step back on the martial arts mats, tie my black belt again. I mean, I still have gastroparesis today, but I really realized that I made it so much worse with my mindset. So I just had better control. And I go back to 2012 now. So 6 years after, about 5 years after I got sick, 2012, I competed at nationals again at 30. So I was old, man, And hey, man, listen, I got bronze in nationals, and that medal means the most to me out of any medal. I remember standing on the podium and thinking to myself, like 4 years ago, like I never thought any of this was possible at all. Again, man, it's just it's incredible, the power of the mind. So that's 2012, and I realized that look, there's something missing here. And I need to figure this out, and that's when I started doing all my research and started learning about everything on a higher level and schooling, and now I get to coach athletes, best athletes in the world, all over the world, every single day. It's like a dream, man. It's incredible that illness was the most incredible and best thing that ever happened to me. Crazy to think that.
Like, what do you think is, so you've been studying the mind, you've had this crazy experience with mindset shifts. What's the biggest thing about the mind that you want, people to know, or that you think people don't know enough about?
I think it's a great question, Abdul. I think the biggest thing is that people need to understand, like, here, let's do this for a second. Like, if I say to you, Abdul, I want you to think the color blue. Okay. So you're thinking the color blue.
Yeah.
Whose thought is that? Like, you can see the color blue in your mind, but is that your thought or is it my thought?
Right. Because I guess I'm the one thinking it, but the only reason it's in my mind is because you just told me to think about it.
That's right. Right. So it's kind of tough. It's like, well, when I look at things in the world, I see all these things, right? My mind's processing them, but it's like, did those things put those thoughts in my mind, or am I thinking it? Right. So I think what people need to understand is no matter what's going on in here is always your thought, no matter what. Even if I tell you to think the color blue, you're still making a decision to think the color blue. It's still your thought. Okay. What people need to understand is that once we have better control of what we're thinking and have a good understanding of what's going on here, we can take better actions. Okay. So I have this high level thing where I believe the vast majority of the people in the world think things, which then trigger emotions. Okay. Our emotions are derived from what we think or what we see in front of us. And then people take action and make decisions based on how they feel. So we think something, triggers an emotion. People take action based on that emotion, which usually leaves them with a result. Sometimes it's not necessarily the most desirable result. I'll give you an example. Okay. I talk about this in my TED Talk. I should probably go to the gym today. I walk past the couch. All of a sudden, I'm thinking to myself, oh man, there's only a couple more episodes of the show left. The couch is there, fuzzy blankets there, man. Forget it. Let's just go, right? So all of a sudden, I feel that emotion. I'm on the couch, and the next thing you know, it's 10 o'clock at night, and I didn't go to the gym. I'm watching my shows, right? So that's again, we're human. The vast majority of these people think things which trigger emotions. They take action, which leads them to a result. What I like to do is I like for people to challenge their thought process a bit. And I want you to think something and then take immediate action. So if I was to say to you, listen, we're going to go to the gym. All right. You would have to take immediate measurable action to go do so. So that would be a process. Going to the gym. My next action is getting my gym clothes. Okay. Next action is getting the keys. Next action is getting into the car. Next action is getting to the damn gym. Right. Mm-hmm. Those are measurable actions. So when you think something, you take immediate action, it'll give you a different result. You're going to end up in the gym, right? When you're done the workout in the gym, then you get to embark in the emotion.
It's like,
does that make sense? Getting
over that little hurdle in the beginning, right? It seems like there's kind of a point where you reach a crossroads,
That's it.
When that thought enters your mind. And, one road is the one that you should go down. The other one is the one that we usually go down. But how do you kind of push yourself to going down the road? I guess those small actions help, hey?
Well, yeah, I think when you start the process, like it's like anything. It's like if I said to myself, okay, listen, I'm working all day, I'm booked, I'm going to work out at lunchtime. Okay, like I'm going to just start working out at lunchtime because that's the time I've got. But that's very vague. Like, what does that lunchtime mean? Does that mean like as soon as I've done my last client, or does that mean like after I eat or before I eat? Like, it's very vague, right? So
Mm-hmm.
people say, well, I'd like to go achieve this, but it's very vague. It's not very specific. So I would make a habit saying, okay, I'm going to make a trigger. As soon as I've done my last call, when I put down the phone, I'm going to shut my laptop. As soon as I shut my laptop, like that's my cue. That's when I leave and go immediately to the gym. So it's something actionable that you can measure, not something that's vague. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. No, that definitely
Yes.
makes
So,
sense.
so to me, uh, remember, people think, so thoughts trigger emotions. People take action based on their emotions, which gives them a result. What we want to do is we want to think something, take immediate action, which will then give them a result. Then you can embark in the emotion once it's complete. And the best part about that is that we're just switching around the order. But at the end, when you embark in the emotion, it only reinsures and reinstills the initial thought that you had. And it's kind of like a success loop. All right.
That sort of process of, your thoughts, taking those thoughts and transitioning them into actions, something that kind of popped into my mind when you said that is the law of attraction. And a lot of people
Sure.
talk about how if you keep repeating certain thoughts into your mind, then you begin to see these within real life. I wanted to get your take on that. What do you kind of think about the law of attraction?
Yeah. So here's the cool thing is that the mind does not know the difference between reality, what's going on in front of us, and what we tell it. Okay, like what we construct in our mind. That's why
Mm-hmm.
you get people that are compulsive liars and they start to believe their own lies, right? But that's why you get people that set their mind to something and say, I'm gonna do it," and then they go do it because they believe they can do it, right?
Right.
Now, I always tell my athletes, we look at things as they are, but never worse than they are. All right, so your perspective is very important. Okay, so it doesn't matter if we're facing adversity; we look at it as it is, but never worse than it is, because we naturally have a tendency to be a little bit pessimistic. So the law of attraction is on the opposite side, which I like. Okay. So let's look at things and let's find the advantage. Let's find the good. Like, how is this going to benefit me? Whether it's an affirmation or whatever it may be. I like it. The only thing that I don't like is I like things to be very real. All right. I need to be realistic. So when I talk about taking immediate action, it needs to be something that's tangible that I can measure, that I can successfully do. Brett at the age now is not going to the Olympics. Okay.
Right.
So again, I need to be real here. And so we control our expectations. But I love the fact of finding the advantage in every situation. I started that 10 years ago or 11 years ago, and I've never stopped. And it's something that I teach my athletes to do all the way to today. So I'm a big believer in that.
Do you think that when we kind of look at things better than they are or idealize what we want them to become, that kind of leads us down a path of maybe self-delusion or,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah, it can. It can. So let me give you an example. I mean, a lot of times if we, let's say something pops up and we get some kind of a result or they announce something that we have to do for school in your case, and all of a sudden it's like out of left field and we're like, oh my gosh, man, like I wasn't expecting this. I was supposed to do this. I was supposed to do that. How am I going to do this? And you just start that snowball, right? Well, your entire state changes, like your physiologically, your actual state, like how you feel.
mm-hmm,
And when we're in a bad or undesirable state, we tend to make poor or emotional based decisions. All right. But if we look at, hey, this is the reality of the situation, this is what we're faced with, let's find the advantage. Let's find a way this is going to benefit me. So when I look at it like, okay, if I have to do this all of a sudden out of nowhere, this is going to help me instill more discipline in myself. This is going to allow me to face adversity. So next time when something happens, and because I mean, life, it's going to happen, I've dealt with it and I've dealt with worse. So I know I got this, right? So now all of a sudden it's like we're using this adversity to our advantage. All right. And it only reinstills confidence. But you got to make that decision. Like you got to make that immediate thought, take action. And how you choose to view it, good or bad, is going to drastically change not just the results for today, but also for tomorrow, right?
what role do you think that mindset shift had in your own personal journey of, kind of overcoming your own health problems?
Man, I tell you right now, I it's kind of crazy to think this. If I don't have that shift in mindset when I see that little boy, I'll tell you right now, I'm not here today. I
Wow.
can guarantee it. I guarantee it. Listen, you got to understand that I was in a place where, like I said, I was thinking about suicide every day, man. you could, dude, I was training for what was the most important thing in my life, which I thought, and it was taken away from me and it was gone. And I was on my deathbed, nothing I could do with no answers. You can only imagine the things that go through your mind. So when you
Yeah.
talk about everything goes back to that moment. Okay. And sure, again, I preface this with saying, there was things that I did after. Maybe I had the support with my family, which, allowed me to see certain things a certain way. There's a number of variables, but I can specifically nail it down to that moment, man. Like I said, I guarantee you, I can 100% confidence. I'm not here where I am today if it's not for that boy.
You say like the most important thing to you at the time, like you thought maybe even your life's purpose was to kind of compete at that high level, right? And now reflecting back, you're doing all this coaching business, all these different projects, and you're still finding meaning in these different things, even though they might not be necessarily that Olympic competition, right? So do you think that it's a bad thing to kind of restrict ourselves into saying this one thing is my entire identity?
Yeah, I think diversification is very important. What I like to think about now is more like an umbrella. Okay. So instead of saying Brett needs to make it to the Olympics, I would kind of generalize it a little bit more, but still be specific. I want to be able to train at the highest levels. Okay. I want to be in the best possible shape. All right. I want to be able to inspire others while I do this. Right. So this type of umbrella makes it a little bit more generalized. So something that, I'm sure you guys do something like this, but I'll give you some insight. So real high level, like an area of focus. All right. So whether it's, I want to train at a high level. Okay. I want to inspire others. We got to break it down into like tangibles. Okay. So what I would do now, instead of saying I need to go to the Olympics and that's it. Again, I want to train at the highest level. Well, what does that look like? So I would break it down by tactics. So you have an area of focus, train at a high level, tactics, little arrow coming down. What's a tactic look like? Well, I would clearly have to have some sort of programming regime, like, some type of training regime. I'd have to have my diet and nutrition in order. I'd have to have my mindset in a good place. So you all of a sudden have these little tactics, right? These are tactics that make up the area of focus. Where I believe people fail, and even athletes and myself, is that those are the tactics. So I know I need to get this training regime. I know I need to get this nutrition thing. But what does that actually look like? And this is what separates winning and losing, is the behaviors that make up those tactics. That's where people fail. So the behaviors are the tangible things that you need to do every single day that'll make up the tactic, that make up the area of focus. You follow?
Yeah.
So get this. If I say, okay, so I know that area of focus, train at the highest level. The one tactic is I need to get my training regime down. One behavior would be like, well, I went to the gym today. So I checked that off. That's garbage, man. That doesn't do anything. Like just because you went to the gym, that's not measurable to me. Okay. So I need specifics. All right. I need to know, what's the behavior. So I'm going to set up my day. I'm going to go to the gym from X to Z, and here's what I'm going to do in between. This, specifics, man, measurable. We've seen it 100 times. How many times that, the new year comes along, we set these new year resolutions. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to gain weight. I'm going to go to the gym, and people go for 2 weeks and they say, forget it. I'm done.
Yeah.
This is common practice. They're done because they don't see what they think is the result. Right. But what they don't see are the little minute actions and the things that are getting them results every day. Like maybe their scale says the same thing, but what's going on inside is completely different, right? So when you have specific measurable actions compounded over time, that's where results come. So again, area of focus, tactics that make up the area of focus, the tangible actions that you take daily, the behaviors that make up those tactics. That's where winning is done.
And so the tangible actions shouldn't be things like you said, going to the gym, because what does that really mean? The tangible actions need to have some sort of result, even if it might be small, that you can see on a daily basis.
Exactly. I want you to think about this. So let's say you just go to the gym for the first 2 weeks of the year. Okay. You step on the scale and it's the same, or you feel the same, or you look the same, right? But if you wrote down every single thing that you did while you're in the gym, within reason, I don't want you to spend 20 minutes writing things down, but if you took actual action of what you've done, man, I guarantee you in 2 weeks, you're going to have some big results. The problem is that our mind is so set on the Olympics or something else that we don't realize the results we're actually getting. Okay. That's why it's sometimes we get demotivated. We quit because we don't see the Olympics or we don't see the scale change. People miss out on what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so this is kind of a nice strategy to use to kind of compensate for delayed gratification. Because, for example, going to the Olympics, you're not going to see that result for maybe 4 years, right? Or maybe even longer than that. And so sticking with those daily habits are extremely difficult when, well, I'm not even going to see my result in 4 years. So I guess this is a nice way to bridge those bigger goals that you won't see for years with things that keep you on track and keep you motivated.
You got it. Not only that, when you start to get like those little check boxes, right? And you can have some fun with this. So I always talk about like stepping stones, like so with some of my athletes, like, man, a lot of my athletes are CrossFit athletes. Listen, I'm an athlete, but these guys are pros. Okay.
Right.
Like I'm far from a pro. So it's fun. Like we do little things where if I see their homework or there's things that they're doing, their tangible actions and they're achieving the things that they're setting out to achieve, like their behaviors are really clear. And if I'm happy with the results or what they're doing, I'll allow them to program a workout for me that I will have to do. So it's like for fun. And let me tell you again, these guys are pro athletes. Okay. So now it's like punishment for me, but it's like success for them. So it's fun, so there has to be a good balance in there. I always challenge people and say, listen, if you're going to do something you hate doing every second of it, there's a problem, right? If you can find the advantage in things you hate currently, maybe you don't actually hate what you're doing. Maybe you're just looking at it the wrong way. That's why I said when I looked at the advantage, it was like every day I got to become better, not for maybe what I was doing in that moment, but for moments like this or for tomorrow or whatever it may be. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that goes back to that mindset shift. Like, particularly, I don't necessarily enjoy going to the gym, right?
Sure.
But yeah. I kind of try to figure out the reasons behind going to the gym that inspire me. So like for me personally, I like the discipline that I get from going to the gym.
There
right?
You go, man.
And so I use that as maybe a motivator to push myself on the days that I don't necessarily feel like doing it. Right.
That's it. And it's especially those days where you say like, I don't want to do this. And you say, F you, man, we're going. All right. Now you're starting to create a new habit saying like, it doesn't matter what you're facing, what type of adversity it is. All of a sudden you're becoming the guy that's saying, don't panic. We got this. Let's go. Man, that can apply to so many things, like so many things. Man, I even think about like big world decisions or like any type of adversity you face in your life. If you create a habit of giving in, okay, forget it. Like, no problem. Not going to go to the gym today. Man, so if you could narrow it back, like if I could go back to today and go all the way back to that moment. And let's say I don't make that decision when I see the boy in the wheelchair. Well, maybe I'm living, maybe I'm gone, man. You know what I mean? Or maybe I'm still lying in bed with gastroparesis who's just completely taken over. I'm on feeding tubes. Who knows, man?
Yeah.
You see? That's what drives me every single day, though. Like the fear of regret or the thought of me not, performing at my highest level or becoming the best version of me terrifies the heck out of me, man. Okay.
So when it comes to decision making, because that's really what we're kind of narrowing in on. It's the importance of making a decision, right? Just choosing for yourself, maybe the kind of life that you want to lead. Do you think there is such a thing as a right decision or a wrong decision? Like, for example, if in that moment you had decided otherwise, do you think the decision that you made is the right one? Or do you think that there is no such thing, that decisions are kind of neutral?
Sure. So it's a great question, man. Look, obviously to me, it's clear that was the right decision. Right. Now, people are going to make decisions and they're going to be the wrong decisions. Mm-hmm. But I would rather you make a decision and go for it as opposed to not, because you're going to lose anyways. Like if you don't make the decision, you're losing. That's how I look at this. Okay. So if you make the decision and it's the wrong decision, at least you gave yourself a chance. And not only that, if you made a decision, you're creating a new habit of actually, when shit hits the fan, excuse my language, to make an actual damn decision. Because a lot of people don't. When they face adversity, it's like, I don't know what to do, right? To me, make the decision. I don't care if it's right or wrong. If it's right, you win. If it's wrong, man, you win because with the right mindset, you're going to learn from that decision, pick up the pieces and keep moving forward.
Okay, awesome. So the importance isn't whether the decision is right or wrong. And I actually kind of like that because I find that sometimes there's a lot of stress and anxiety rooted around, am I making the right decision? Right? Like, and sometimes that paralyzes people and even myself when it comes to deciding, is that I'm so scared that I'm going to be making the wrong decision that I end up making no decision at all.
Man, there's a line that I always say. It's just stop making something simple into something complex. Okay. And that's, to me, that drives so much emotion that we see in today's day and age. I mean, you see the smallest things set people off. What are they going to think about me? What's the fear of this preconceived notion of what society expects me to be like? Man, who cares?
Yeah.
What? Do people really think that? Do I think that I'm that important that I'm worried about what society thinks about me, man? No, like, forget it, man. I just, again, to me, I really do think we make things a lot tougher than they need to be. Okay. I think that people need to understand that there's so much more control up here. We have full control of it. We've created a habit in a society that maybe it's a little bit more difficult these days. Sure. Social media, man, TikTok, Instagram, all this stuff. We're sure, no problem. I get it. But at the end of it all, only you control what's going on in here. Only you can control whether you want to pick up your phone and immerse yourself in that. Only you can control if you want to go to the gym. To me, you need like leverage. And that's why I said what drives me is the fear of regret. Like that, like terrifies me. Like not, what if I wasn't doing this today? Or what if I could be doing something so much better? That's like, I never want to look back and be like, oh, I wish I would have done this. And I'll tell you why, because when I was in Asia at the very beginning, it was tough, man. Like I just went to a different country. The language is different. The food was different. I didn't speak any Mandarin at the time. I remember calling my mom after 2 weeks, like crying, being like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm human, right? So I realize now, looking back, and of course, there's no such thing as perfect, but there was so much more I could have done that I wish I did. Even when I started to get sick, of course, now knowing what I know now, maybe I could have just dealt with it right away and just gotten over it. Maybe there was so many decisions that I made previously, or not making decisions at all to try to face adversity. So when I got sick, I was like, oh, you know what? I got to go home. Like I'm done. You see?
Yeah.
Like maybe there was so many things that I already did that just sent me down that path when maybe it was all preventable. I mean, listen, I overcame gastroparesis. I still have it, but it's controllable. So, I mean, why couldn't I have done it then? You follow?
Yeah.
So to me, when I look back and I say to my athletes, they have the opportunity to compete right now at the highest level. I don't. There's nothing I can do to go back and compete. It's done, man. You follow?
Right.
That terrifies me, man, to think that I might think like that again in the future. And that's one of the things that drives me to make decisions every single day, to go for it, to take the risks, just say, F it, let's go.
Yeah.
And that's like, why I believe that we again, to me, that's what drives me. I think it's important to kind of highlight that for everybody.
And so in almost a paradoxical way, the pain of regret of the past stops you from ever wanting to experience that pain again. Do you think that is something that can be learned through somebody telling it to you? Or do you think that you have to experience it yourself to understand that?
Listen, it's a great question. So we look at all these great leaders, Tony Robbins, all these super inspirational stories. We see these guys face massive adversity, right? Mm-hmm. Massive adversity. And then they've overcome it into greatness, myself included. Well, I'm not at that level, but I've been there, right? But I guarantee you, every single other person that listens to this podcast has a story. Man, you have a story. Man, you faced adversity. Everybody has a story. Okay? We just need to understand how we look at it drastically changes the things we do today. Okay? So I could be, oh, poor Brad, man, I had this shot of the Olympics. Oh, man, and it got taken away from me and blah, blah, whatever. Man, get over it, dude. Change your perspective. Find the advantage in it. For me, I use that as leverage. I don't feel sorry for myself. I use that as leverage to push me to become better every single day. So again, it's a choice, right? I think about all the stories and the lessons your parents told you guys when you were growing up. Okay. My dad said, oh, you used to work so hard, this and that and whatever, you have to walk X amount of money. Like all of these stories have incredible value. It's just a matter of doing something with it. How you choose to look at it drastically changes how you feel right now and drastically changes the actions that you take.
Sometimes when, even when we change our mindset and we're kind of going down a path where we take the misfortunes that happen to us and we take a more positive outlook, we do have those self-doubts. They always kind of creep up. We have those off days. Do you have any sort of strategies when a person is having some of those off days, you're going through the motions? How do you pick yourself back up, get yourself back on the right track?
For sure. Great question. Listen, we're all human. All right. Even the best have bad days. Okay. Man, I've had many of my bad days. Just ask my ex-girlfriend. Okay. Listen, the important thing here is that bad days are going to come. All right. It's inevitable. We're going to face adversity. Well, maybe we have way too much adversity in one day. But what we go back to is our physical state. Okay. So I want you to picture yourself. You're having a great day and life's fantastic. Everything's great. Some adversity strikes. You're like, it's nothing. It's no big deal. Like it doesn't even faze you. You flip the script. You're having a bad day. One thing after another. That very same adversity hits you, and all of a sudden, it's like the world's ending. Like it's like catastrophic. Like my gosh, you understand?
Mm-hmm.
We can relate.
Yeah.
The difference here is that it's the only thing that changed was our state that we were in, like how we felt. Right? Day one, we were good. Adversity hit, didn't faze us. Day two, we were terrible. Same adversity hit, catastrophic meltdown. It's all in our state. Okay. Again, how we feel in this moment is a reflection of what we're thinking and what we're choosing to view in front of us, like how we choose to perceive the world. So if you find yourself in a bad state, Tony Robbins says this best. You need to change your physiology. You need to change your physical state. Okay. So, man, I remember 2 weeks ago, I had just come back from Europe. I was jet lagged. I was tired. I had a bunch of stuff to do. The last thing I felt like doing was doing it. I was sitting on the couch and I was like, man, like, I don't want to do it. Like, man. And I have a little tiny trampoline, like a little baby one. And I said, man, get out of it. Snap out of it. So I smacked my hands together when it was loud. Smacked my hands together. And all of a sudden, it's just like an eye opener. I stood up really quick. Okay. And I walked over to the trampoline and I jumped on the trampoline for 10 seconds. I got on the trampoline. I was like, it's go time, man. Like, it's go time. Changing your physical state drastically changes how you feel. All right. I want you to think about this. If you're having a bad day and let's say you're grumpy, you're on the couch and I get you to stand up and do jumping jacks, I guarantee you, you're going to smile. I guarantee you I can make you smile.
Right.
Okay. That's not the answer. But what that does do is it gives you a moment to take back control of your conscious thoughts, because that change of state disrupts the emotion. It disrupts the world is ending. All right. So what happens again is, remember, people think things triggers emotion. Okay. So if we continue to focus on the emotion, the terrible day, bad adversity, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. We're stuck in that. We're not even controlling our emotion. They're controlling us. We're stuck in that state. But if you change your state, clap your hands together, pound yourself in the chest, change your physical state, jump up and down for a few seconds, it's going to give you an opportunity to take back control. And the way we take control is to bring logic back into the equation, like facts, not emotions. Man, I was saying, I'm super tired. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I just want to lie on the couch. Bang, I changed my state to jump on the trampoline. The facts is this. I have people depending on me. I need to coach people. I must put myself in the best damn state possible to provide them the best experience. That's on me. That's leverage. Now I need to do it for them. You follow?
Yeah.
Those are the facts. It's not, oh man, I'm so tired, dude. The trip was amazing. I don't want to be here. No. Bring logic back in the equation. So change your state. Always the most important piece. Disrupt the emotion. Take control with the facts. Always find the logic.
And I suppose the earlier that you do it in those cycles of emotions and thoughts, the earlier that you disrupt them, the easier it is to disrupt them.
Yeah, of course, because you're not building some huge monster, right? But so get this. Here's the other thing: is the more often you disrupt the emotions and take back control, the better chance you have that it doesn't really happen. So don't get me wrong. There's days where I still find myself emotional, but I can snap out of it like this. Because it's like my body knows, like, don't even bother, you're going to lose. Like, Brett's in control. Does that make sense?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you kind of almost turn that into a habit, right?
Exactly. That's it.
You know, at a certain point out in your experience, after you do it so many times, you just get to a point where you don't even need to start jumping up and down anymore. You can just be able to, you know, do it mentally.
So in NLP, which is Neurolinguistic Programming, so we all have habits. We all have things we do every single day. Okay, like you get out of the bed, maybe you brush your teeth first, maybe you go shower, you wash your face. I don't know. Everybody has their own little routine. These are their own habits that they've created. Well, NLP essentially is that. So, for example, when I go to do something in the gym, okay, I smack my hands together, but in reverse, not like clapping, but backwards. Okay, that's something that I do. That's like a trigger for me. So I program myself to do this clap. Every single time I do this, it's go time. All right. So it's like I've created a habit of smack, shut down the emotion, take control of logic thought, go lift the damn bar, whatever the workout, whatever the exercise is. That's something that I do. So it's like I've created a trigger. All right. This is my habit. My little trampoline is something that I've done now for the last 3 or 4 years before I go to speak to somebody, before I get on a presentation, before I jump on a Zoom call with you. Out comes the trampoline. It's just, it's my thing.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm a big believer in neurolinguistic programming, these type of behaviors, these little triggers. They're like secret weapons, man.
Awesome. That's amazing. I want to throw one last scenario at you, get your perspective on this. We ask this to all of our guests, but you know, imagine you're going on a hike, right?
Yep.
And the end goal of the hike, you want to reach the top of the mountain. You want to get to that summit, amazing view at the top, right? And we all know that when you're going hiking, there's some things you can bring with you to help you out. Bring some hiking boots, it'll be useful. Some snacks, some water, bring appropriate clothing, whatever it might be. These things help you on your journey up the mountain. And so let's assume that this mountain is your life, right? And that the summit of this mountain is the peak of your achievement. It's the peak of who Brett is. You've coached the people that you want to coach. You've done the things that you want to do. You've experienced life to the fullest. What advice or what characteristics, what 3 things would you tell people to bring with them on this hike so that they would increase their likelihood of success, so that it will help them along their journey?
Great question, man. So Lewis Howes does something very similar to this, who has a great podcast, School of Greatness, about his 3 truths that they learn in life. I'll tell you right now, I'm going to go back to my area of focus. The area of focus is going to be your overall mindset. All right. The mind, everything starts and ends with the mind. Okay. So whether it's learning more about your own self, increasing your level of self-awareness, reading, taking action, everything falls within that. So my area of focus is always going to be the mind is the most important, because that's the one thing that we possess that separates us from everyone else. So now within that, take my area of focus analogy, take your tactics. All right. Find your measurable actions, your behaviors, your daily things that you need to do. Because truly that's the recipe. Like truly that's the recipe. For me, it started with making a conscious decision to change the way I was looking at things from seeing a boy in a wheelchair. Right. My whole TED talk, I talk about it. I say you're one conscious decision away from an entirely different life. So the decision is important. So you need to decide, right? But what are we deciding on? What am I going to do? So make the damn decision, figure out what it is you want to achieve, make it tactical so you can see what you need to do, break it into small chunks and make those chunks measurable and take action every single day. To me, like I'll tell you right now, that's the recipe for success for me.
Awesome. And just one thing I'm curious about, if, you know, that boy in the wheelchair ever happens to come across a video like this and he recognizes you and he says, oh, you know what? You know, that was me. And you could say one thing to that boy. What would you say to him?
Aside from saying thank you, of course, I'd want everybody to know that we have an opportunity to inspire the world around us. And the gift of giving is the greatest gift of life. So he inspired me to be a better version of myself. And I hope I can inspire everybody else to be better versions of themselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on to today's podcast, Brett. We really appreciate it.
It's my absolute pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity, Abdul. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, think of one friend who could benefit from the information that we shared. Be sure to share this podcast with them. You can catch the full video podcast on YouTube. The full audio podcast is out on all platforms. And be sure to tune in next week for another episode. Thank you.